Joel Roosa, and my name is Rick Moore, and I'm your host of Right. And today we're, like I say, we're interviewing him for his book, All Worlds Awakening. We're getting further in the weeds with the explanations of his characters. It's the second part of his story, right? And hello, Joel, by the way.
Oh,
So explain to the audience, if you would, who Hokan is, and tell us about his death. That's
uh,
fascinating when you do that, right?
well, thanks. Yeah, it's funny. Like we started out with Hokan's death. That's a bit unusual, I thought. Um, yeah,
It,
well,
it really was.
well, it's to be honest. Okay, um, Hokan, like a fair number of characters in a lot of my stories, are leftover things from my old D&D days. This was a character I created because the guy was just starting into it and he didn't have a powerful enough character. So I said,
Right.
look, I have an out for this. Just roll up his intelligence and stuff like that. Then we put him in the new body. Hokan is a 90-year-old Viking on his deathbed when it starts out, and he thinks he's already dead until Indra Veldurian shows up and says, no,
Uh,
you're not dead. You're just you're just getting there basically. You're mostly dead, and so
a fine distinction, right?
yeah, really. So he decided to. He gives him the option that
Yes, I was going
that
to ask you, what options did he have? Right?
well,
Eldorian gave.
Hokan has basically two options at this point: to either die or to work for the Valdurians in a young, strong body. Now, here's the thing: for being an actual Viking, he's dying the straw death, which means he's dying of bed, not in battle, and that's just not how it's done when you're a Viking. You want to die in battle, and because then you're guaranteed Valhalla and
What
stuff
do you
like
call that? Straw death?
straw death. Yeah, I think
Yep.
I actually got that from Paul Anderson way back in the day. Another excellent writer. Geez, but there was some character who was dealing with entombed Vikings. Well, I can't quite remember how it went, but yeah, the straw death. So I'll steal that term, and because beds are usually packed with straw. So
The straw death is a fascinating concept. I mean,
yeah,
because they survived the battles, he
yeah,
dies a straw death.
yeah, and it's like nothing to do now. Well, I'm just going to die in bed. Well, that's just not. We're just not having that. So so yeah. So they usually like to go out with a bang. I don't know how well
Right?
that applied to real life as far as when because people were Vikings like their entire life. You're
Yeah.
only a Viking if you're going a Viking. You're going on a raid, loot, women maybe. You come back, then you farmed, but you had treasure from maybe some nice defenseless monastery somewhere, or maybe someplace more defensible, but you fought your way for it. Um, that's just what you did. It's like it wasn't exactly a wealthy land as far as gold and jewels and whatnot. So they went out, made a fortune, came back, farmed, had kids, kids do the
Right.
same, that kind of stuff.
Now, tell us again who is offering the options to Hokan. Tell us who Indra Valdurian is.
Okay, Indra Veldurian is the head of the Veldurian family. I know it makes him sound like a mob boss or something, but he's the oldest Veldurian, and he and his wife have birthed a whole line of rather interesting, I think, individuals, very powerful for the most part, and they have taken upon themselves to keep the peace anywhere they can, mostly um, when it comes to other dimensions, crossing other dimensions to fight. It's like they're not as concerned with what's going on within a particular world because that's their own business. But if
Right?
something crosses over to invade interdimensionally, that makes it their business, or at least they figure it does anyway. It's the old "with great power comes great responsibility" thing.
Right.
It's like, well, if we're not going to do it, who's going to take care of it? So,
Now,
and
when you wrote the words, without deeds worthy of song, why bother living? How does that apply to Hokan's choices?
well, he did a lot of things when he was younger. Apparently, according to him, great deeds, and people sang about them. Oh, he didn't do it right, and they haven't been done for a long time. And it's like now he has the chance to start over again, and it will say a 30-something body and forge a new legend for himself, so that people will talk about him, sing about him.
Right?
Maybe invite him on talk shows. I don't know. Like
Kind of the Viking way of business, right?
yeah, it's like you got to make a name for yourself. If you're not if you're not living, you're dying. If you're not making a name for yourself, what are you doing? I'm farming. Well, that's nice, but who
Not a
cares?
Viking.
Yeah, exactly.
So Indra Valdurian is offering Håkon death or a chance to achieve glorious things in his new body, right?
Precisely. And so it's like the Valdurians he can't restore him to life in the world that he's in, because
Right.
that would be interfering with another dimension's normal process. But he says, once you're gone from there, I can take you somewhere else and give you a new body. That, because
That was going to be my next question about the mechanics of it. Now what were you saying, that he couldn't save him in the body he was in,
right,
but he gives him a new body, a new dimension.
right, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but a big beefy body. So yeah, because as it turns out, the Valdurians seem to have a supply of these things on hand. That comes up in the stories a bit, and I don't ever quite explain why. Håkon's body does get explained later, but there's a bunch of bodies waiting around just for Håkon to take one of them. So I know it comes up a little later after this part, but
yeah. Yeah, but what were the few things first, if you can do them, that Håkon was referring to?
Right. It's like, well, he's lying on his bed, deadish, and he wants to be able to get up out of bed, go out and yell at the world, basically. So he gets up. He's strong enough to get up and knocks his rotted door off its one remaining leather hinge, and goes out and yells at the kids in his yard. It's like basically telling him, get off my lawn, you rotten kids. Although it was phrased a little more Vikingly,
like Clint Eastwood said, right?
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. Get off my lawn, you rotten kids. And it's like, he wanted to do that. It's like, I must have felt good for a guy who's basically been bedridden probably for quite a while.
Yes.
And so then it's like, now he's ready to go. So it's like, that's the thing. It's like, just pours oil all over the house, pours all over himself. He's got an oil lamplet, just smashes it on the floor. Okay, I'm ready. Take me.
He goes up in flames, right?
Right. Probably like, please take me before it starts hurting too much. I didn't say that, but I could see that in there,
Yeah. But, now, when you describe Valoran, what is Valoran like?
Okay, it doesn't really show up in the books so much, but Valoran is a pocket dimension. It's essentially a castle floating on a cloud. It's a reasonably indestructible citadel that holds all the Valdurian stuff, where they come and go and keep things going, and they meet there. I don't think I ever really bring it up, but Valdurians don't really get together that much between them. It's like maybe one or two here and there. It was designed as a meeting place where they can all show up. Maybe they have a yearly party, that kind of thing. How's it going? I just destroyed 3 giants. It's just a place where they keep their stuff mostly. Yeah. So.
Is it beautiful or?
Oh, it's a gorgeous place. It's a big alabaster citadel, and there's outside, there's like parks and recreation. That sounds familiar. And various places to go to. They have people and creatures they've rescued from different dimensions that have a home there. They've got kami, Kami, from Japan, like spirits that hang out in this grove and stuff like that. They're not there to work, but they're there for any number of reasons, and they don't really figure.
It's a pocket dimension, beautifully outfitted and everything for the Valdurians, for the sole purpose of nurturing the Valdurians, right?
Yep.
All right. One of the let's see, how exactly did Indra transfer Håkon to his new body?
He didn't technically transfer himself. He just gave his soul enough juice to remain a coherent soul while he took him to Valoran, and then
Indra took him to Valoran, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So then once he's there, he gets to float around and choose what body he wants. There's one scene where there's a whole bunch of the cylinders and they look like shields on the wall from the outside, but they're cylinders that hold bodies, and they're usually of any number of gender and sometimes any race. I don't really go into that too much, but He's supposed to choose one that suits him, and only he can know that because there's like a psychic resonance of some sort. And
Right.
he's like, no, 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 that's good looking. Oh, I love that one. No, no good. That kind of thing.
Right.
Until finally, Indra's got one he's been saving for special occasions. He's a little bit embarrassed by it. It's a project he's been working on for years. It was a body that was so messed up, and he's been fixing it. And it's like a guy restoring autos or something like that. It's like,
He's fixing the body, right?
Yeah,
here's the body.
Here's a good body for you. I've taken care of all the problems I had. It should be. And this actually, it was like probably the ugliest looking body there, or at least it's the most scarred. And this one's perfect fit. So whatever that says,
Wow.
I don't know. But it's like, yep, that'll do. It's like,
all right. Now, what were the oracles foretelling, and how did that affect Hokan?
well, presumably,
And first, who are the oracles?
okay, the Oracles of Valoran, the 8 who are one, and there's a whole bunch of titles I can't remember right off the bat. They have a whole slew of titles they like to be introduced by, like the Ogdoad of Omniscience, the 8 who are one, the Sibylline sisters, yada yada yada, on like that. And
Right.
they are either a single Valdurian in 8 bodies, or 8 Valdurians who share something of a consciousness, and their entire
that's an interesting idea.
their
A shared
entire
consciousness.
So they're individual people, but there's a shared consciousness in there,
Right.
and their whole focus is predicting the future because they can't help themselves. That's what their ability is. So they figure they may as well use it, but they all do it different ways. Gid, the red one, uses tarot cards. One of them uses tea leaves. Delu, the black, uses crystals, crystal almonds and stuff like that. There's
Right.
hydromancy and a bunch of things like that. And they just play around their little grotto, which changes shape a lot, depending on their mood, or possibly whichever one of the 8 is mostly dominant at the moment. They will search for future events, and they don't predict exactly everything that's ever going to happen in the universe, multiverse ever, but they will find events of significance and make sure that the rest of the Valdurians are aware of them, so they can either utilize it to their advantage or to make sure it doesn't happen, or at least to mitigate any of the effects.
Right.
But what they have predicted, some big event, and one will presume that the explosion of soul essence later in the book is that. It may not be, though, because there's stuff coming up in later books that may be what they're long range predictors. So this satisfies the immediate, like, oh, what are they predicting? Oh, well, this is the big events. Yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just one of them. So, and so the Hokan's been recruited because they need him to handle a certain aspect, which comes up in his second story in the book later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, tell us, if you would, a little about Raylani.
Okay, Raylani, the Angel of Valoran, as she actually likes to be called. She pretends she doesn't, but she does. She's like the Lady of Valoran, Indra's wife. She is essentially either the second in charge or co-captain or whatever you want to call it. And she doesn't seem to have assigned jobs all the time, but she's all over the place. And right now, she's just at one point there. She's there to greet Hokan after he chooses his body. But she is like all Valdurians. She is subject to 3 Geases. This from the Irish mythologies, which is something you get slapped on a hero usually to either force them to do something or prevents them from doing something.
Right.
If you're familiar at all with the legend of Cahulin,
no, I'm not actually.
Well, he was like the archetypal Irish hero. The Hound of Ulster, this and blah blah, champion, yada yada yada. Big deal. He got 2 Geases, probably more, that are slapped on him by the enemy. And there's conditions for how you can put Geases on people, but he had 2. One was that he can never pass by a campfire without asking for something, without eating something that they're cooking.
What did you call them? The two things?
The the Geases, are you talking about?
Yeah, Geases, right?
Geases, yeah, Geases. I might possibly be pronouncing it incorrectly. That's how I've always heard
Okay.
it pronounced.
Yep.
He could never pass by a campfire without getting something to eat from, from whoever's. I mean, assuming they were cooking food.
That's
And
an
the
odd.
second one,
That's an odd stricture.
yeah, and the second Geas was that he could never eat dog because he was the Hound of Ulster. Dog was like, I don't know if you want to call it his totem animal or something like
Right.
that.
Right. Right.
So what the enemy did, knowing these Geases, maybe they caused them, I don't know. They made sure the very first campfire he came across, they were cooking dog.
Oh no.
And he had to eat dog, so it severely weakened him for the upcoming battle, which he lost eventually. So the Ulster side lost, I'm as I recall.
Oh
There's
wow.
a lot of good heroic stuff going on there, but yeah, his Geases fought against him because he had to, if he didn't obey them, he'd be weakened. And clearly, having disobeyed one of them, he was weakened. And it's the same with Raylani. She has three. All the Veldurians have three Geases, one major and two minor. Her one of hers is that, well, the major one is she cannot actually harm anybody on purpose. She can't punch you in the face. Well, she did that once years ago, and it really messed her up for a while. She can't hurt you with her fists or with magic. She can't. Let's see. She, in this case, it causes her powers. There's always a wind blowing around her, and she wears this really thin, gown-like outfit which blows against tight curves. The idea is it's supposed to embarrass her. She's this high figure of authority, but she's always got this embarrassing moment going on, like it'll reveal curves of her body and various things like that. And it's meant to humble her, essentially.
Right.
And the other Geas is, oh God, I forget now. I just looked it up earlier today. I was going through things. It was like, he can't hurt you, her wind Geas, and sorry, I can't remember the third one.
That's okay. That's okay.
But yeah. So it's like, so when Håkon sees her, he's in his body, his new body. He's naked, and there she is, practically naked. And here's this 90-year-old guy who's suddenly like 30 years old, and you can kind of imagine.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, so there's Håkon. And you're like, oh dear Lord. And it's like, how can I react to her? This is my boss, and kind of
Right.
stuff. So yeah, well,
That explains, like why would Raylani say to Håkon, and for goodness sake, get yourself a girlfriend?
yeah,
Because of his reaction to seeing her?
yeah, because he's got an erection going that he can't really hide anymore,
Right.
and it's like, which I'm sure on some level that kind of gave her a kick because she was causing this.
Right.
Like they're people too, but it's like, the girlfriend. I can understand that. So and
right.
so here he is, like, oh dear Lord. He was probably red all over. Actually, I didn't bother mentioning that, but
Right.
I'd be surprised if he was.
Now, who is Q?
Well, Q is the guy that gives James Bond all his equipment, of course.
That's what I thought, actually.
Yeah, that was kind of the intent. This is Ifix, the Magicker. He makes most of the oddball magic devices that the Valadurians use, not armor or weapons. That's his cousin Inak's job. But so he puts his actual ability, which he doesn't. He can take a spell and ram it into an object.
Really?
Instance, he can capture a fireball and stick it in a sword, and so at least for a while, the sword could burst into flame like a fireball. Not sure I'd want to be holding that, but or it could fire one, perhaps.
I guess so, right?
Yeah, that's his thing. He makes all the equipment, and so his name is it's Ifix. It's like IFQX. It's really hard to pronounce. Anything like Q will do. It's the most important part. So,
Right. Now, explain again for the audience what a Demi Knight is and their responsibilities are.
Okay. Well, the Knights of Valoran are just,
because that's what it all comes down to. Håkon's becoming a Demi Knight.
He's right now. He's an Demi because they just hired him. He's not a full knight yet.
Right.
But you go where you're told and you take care of whatever missions you're given. they don't get a lot of autonomy. They just, hang out until, a mission is given.
But he's
The knights have-
training for the Demi-Knights, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The knights get a little more autonomy, and they know more what they're doing. So generally, a Demi-Knight is hooked up with a full knight, or just a knight, I should say. But in this case, they've got a specific mission in mind for him already, so he doesn't really need any knight training at the moment.
All right. Tell us what the 4 things on Q's desk were for. I'm curious.
Okay. That was a coin, a crystal, a coin, a crystal, a chalice, and a cabochon.
Right. What could those be used for?
Yeah. Well, they start with letter C, so right off the bat, there's that. Alliteration. That's all they're used for. The coin, it's basically a black glass set in a gold backing. The gold backing is biomagnetic. It sticks to the skin. It's a Veldurian energy shield. So you're not going to just send a Veldurian a knight out there to be laser blasted or fireballed.
Right.
The shield offers some protection.
That would be the coin?
That's the coin.
Yep.
So you can stick that anywhere on your body if you want to, and hide it usually so you can protect from it. It doesn't protect from like physical attacks, but at least to save from being bolted.
Which is something, right?
Yeah, it's hey, in that line of work, you never know when you might get a lightning bolt.
Right.
The crystal is a shard of the Rainbow Bridge Bifrost from Norse mythology, which is kind of handy, because Håkon is also, kind of part and parcel with Norse mythology. He worshipped Thor and all that kind of stuff. So, and what happened, there's been many worlds that had Ragnarok. So the Rainbow Bridge was broken. So there's all kinds of rainbow shards floating around.
So the Rainbow Bridge you're talking about are in multi-dimensions, right?
Yeah. Well, the Rainbow Bridge was used to connect Asgard to Midgard, where humans are now. And in the way it's used now, the Rainbow Bridge, if you know how to activate the shard, you can trigger a small portion of Rainbow Bridge to go to pretty much anywhere.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And
then the chalice, it's one they gave to him to communicate with him. It's like when they call Håkon, the 8 gems around the room of it will glow, and he knows they've got a mission. So you put liquid in it, and then you pour liquid out, and it forms incomprehensible symbols that he can somehow read, and he knows what his mission is. All the nights is some kind of weird.
Now that's an interesting concept.
Well, thanks. Harry has a mirror in his bathroom. When you steam it up, words will appear in the steam on the mirror. And yeah. And the cabochon is a cabochon cut gem, a round oval gem. It's a black one. And when he picks up his knight badge, the 8-pointed knight badge forms around.
Is it a black opal or
black? Yeah, I don't define it. It's basically a black opal. I don't say opal, but that's what it is.
Okay.
And then the badge forms around, and that's just identifies him as a Demi-Knight. Demi-Knights all have a colored gemstone in the middle of their badges.
Right.
Full knights have just a hole in the middle of the badges, meaning it graduated from the ranking system to a full knighthood. So.
Okay.
Yeah. And that differentiates them from the full stars with Veldurians, who have 8-pointed gold stars without the hole in the middle.
Oh, okay. Now this is getting truly interesting. Tune in for our next episode for further explanation of the magic and the characters of Joel Roosa's All Worlds Awakening. It's a really good book. You should try it. Order it today, right? So, Joel, do you have a Facebook or handle that they can get a hold of you at?
I'm just Joel Roosa on Facebook, and I'm at Joel Roosa on Twitter.
At Joel Roosa on Twitter.
At Joel Roosa, yeah. So.
Okay, good.
That's a thing, but it is a thing. So I don't really.
Yeah, your publisher's book is Whitecap Publications, which has a website too. But honestly, you got to tune in next week, because next week is when it really gets interesting. So until then, Joel. All right. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you.